Whoa. Excuse me. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Nuggets. If you heard the things Ryan Blackburn said off air, oh my gosh, you'd be like, wow, HR. Oh, Ryan, anything to say for yourself?
I certainly hope not. Certainly hope that we weren't live when I said what I just said. Jesus.
Ryan, I had no idea that you were secretly an OKC fan, brother. I mean, I'm just so shocked.
Yeah,
so shocked.
I'm a big Chet Holmgren, Alex Caruso, like AJ Mitchell. Those are my guys right there.
Well, and by the way, I want to give a quick happy birthday. I believe today is in 2 days. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander turning 28 years old in 2 days.
Yeah, he's basically done.
And Cameron Boozer has the same birthday as me, as July 18th. And then I just saw somebody else has also another July. Oh, Yamal, the best player in the world, has a birthday, I think, coming up on the 13th of July. And then Nelson Mandela's the 18th as well. This is really just a legendary month of stars, brother.
Hey, man, that's it's not my birthday month, though, so
shout out to y'all. Y'all are amazing. Y'all know what show this is. That's Ryan Blackburn. This is Swipa, and this is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Nuggets. This is your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Swipa, joined with the traitor, the man himself, the Benedict Arnold, Ryan Blackburn. Boo!
Nuggets fans know they know that everything I said there and everything that you said there is an absolute lie.
Brother, you have a J. Will Shea poster on that wall behind you right now.
Weird.
You're actually not.
I can't see it. Can you see it? That's crazy.
I've seen your stuff in real life, brother. I know what you are. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to the Locked On Nuggets community. Shout out to all the great people in the chat. Shout out to all the great people in the world. We did an ad read for BetterHelp yesterday, and people had a really nice response to that in the comment section. So you know what? Shout out to y'all. Shout out to BetterHelp. Make sure you tap in with them to continue to work on your own mental health as well. Today's episode is going to be fun, Ryan. We're going to talk about Summer League because in literally 2 hours, the Denver Nuggets are getting ready to play in a Summer League basketball game. We're going to have Nuggets basketball for the first time since that just albatross of a Game 6 when the Nuggets just could not get it right when the Minnesota Timberwolves missing 4 of their 8 best players, brother. So are you excited for Summer League?
Not yet. Not gonna lie. Like there are some Nuggets players that will be cool to see when they do ultimately get out there. So that'll be good. But I got to be honest, when Denver traded down and they traded out of the first round, there were some guys that you and I had gotten very excited about. I know that you've been watching Cam Carr from afar. You've been watching some of these other guys. Some of like LeBaron Philon looks like a great guard for the Philadelphia 76ers that they're going to be able to bring off their bench. And it's guys like that. So when Denver trades down, obviously that changes the perspective at least a little bit. And what I'm really excited about is finding out what the heck is going on with the Trevin Brazil and the Bryce Hopkins contracts, because if they don't sign a deal, they literally cannot play. So I'm looking forward to seeing if we get a nice little notification from Bennett Durando or from Vinny Benedetto or somebody like that who's basically saying, yeah, these guys they're available to play now because they signed an actual deal. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, Ryan, I'm really hoping, and I had this just horrific thought last night. Remember 2013 when the Nuggets drafted a certain Frenchman in the late first round?
They kind of drafted him. I've got some special insight on that one. Tim Connolly was told, you are not selecting anybody in this draft this year until the second round. They were not going to pay for a first round pick that year. And it just turned out to be a multi-time All-Star and a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep, and Terrence Reed had a double-double in Summer League. And
double-double? Oh, man.
I have a fear. I have a fear, man, in my heart. I'm just like, please don't let this just be one of those. We don't really want this guy. Can we get 2 second-round picks? And that guy ends up being like a legitimately dominant starting center in the NBA. That would be horrible, but it just feels like that's kind of been the Nuggets' luck over the last 15 years in the draft. Brian, is that a little PTSD from me?
Yeah, of course it is. Like, absolutely. We've seen this happen all the time, and we've seen it happen even when Denver gets good players that they ultimately miss on some other guys that were below them that were even better. But I mean, here's the thing: this is all karma for taking Nikola Jokic at 41st overall and getting the steal of the century in that case. And you can just imagine what all those other teams were kicking themselves for not drafting Nikola Jokic 1st overall or 2nd overall or 35th overall or whatever the number would be. So here's hoping that Denver got a couple of steals in the 2nd round and that they can get those guys signed, and then we can see some exciting basketball.
Yeah, I think, Ryan, I'm a little bit, obviously this is going to be completely contingent on the idea that both Brazil and Hopkins are going to be signed by the time the game comes around. But hey, this is your 35th overall draft pick. Ryan, and as I was trying to, be like trying to be positive about what exactly the Nuggets could be walking into, I talked to you a few days ago, really a few weeks ago.
Wrong choice, my friend. Wrong choice to feel positive about the situation.
Yeah, and I went in back and I looked at the history of the drafts in the last few years because I really wanted to see, look at the 2nd round and like see who's kind of come out of the drafts and, who's been, what and what those players have turned into. And, I came away with like, man, the 2nd round's actually been really good because, obviously 2025, you had Ryan Kalkbrenner came out. Obviously, Odoo Thero went to the Los Angeles Lakers, could end up being a really good player, who knows. But and then you go 2 years ago, you got Kyle Filipowski, who's a really good player, is dominated versus Denver, especially. AJ Mitchell, obviously, it's a terrific player. Jalen Wells was the 39th overall pick. AJ was the 38th. And then Oso Iguodala, 3 straight picks, actually, 38, 39, and 40. Oso Iguodala is a starting level center, obviously, behind Mark Williams now. Jamal Shed from Houston. He went to the Toronto Raptors. Is already one of the best on-ball defensive guards in the NBA.
Yeah.
And you keep going before that in the 2023, obviously that's the Jalen Pickett draft. But Muhammad Gaye was in that draft. He went to 39. G.G. Jackson went 45. But we kind of remember what G.G. Jackson was that first year. And then
Camera.
You said what?
And Camera went in that draft too. Money. Yeah,
that is right. He went 55. Yeah,
that's a crazy one. But I get what you're saying here in terms of there have been guys. There have been players that Denver has missed out on because they traded all their 2nd round picks in all likelihood. And then when they did use their 2nd round picks, they missed in those situations. So the hope is that Denver gets a positive outcome here and they get one guy, or maybe multiple, where it's either Trevin or it's Bryce, and they are way outperforming what their draft spot is. And I had somebody ask earlier, okay, you've seen those guys in the gym, Ryan, like what do you expect from them? I'm not expecting much, certainly from the first couple of seasons with those guys, just because Denver doesn't really play those guys that often. But like if they do have to sign somebody like Trevin Brazil to a full-time contract, you kind of have to at least explore the idea of him playing pretty soon. Deron Holmes has been in the gym. He hasn't looked great to me, at least in some of those things. Now, maybe that's just the few minutes that media actually gets to be able to watch some of those things. But I don't know what that draft pick's going to look like going forward. I had high hopes and continue to hope for Deron Holmes to work out. But if it's not Deron, Denver didn't draft anybody in 2025. Now, they did add Spencer Jones over that time, and he's turned into some, but they don't even have him on the roster yet. So you're really hoping that it's Trevin Brazil, it's Bryce Hopkins, maybe KJ Simpson shows out a little bit, but Denver, they need one of these guys to work out and be better than expected because of all the talent that they've already lost due to the salary cap issues that they have.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see kind of how things continue to balance out for this team, but I got to say, man, I'm more positive, which is probably not normal in this situation, than you are on Brazil. I actually think he's a good fit for what Denver needs. I think that kind of explosive athleticism is really important, especially that verticality next to the rim. And I think defensively, it's stuff he can do rim protection wise, but also just as a zone buster, as a lob threat. He has decent touch as well. You're just you just right now you don't have a player in particular like just all that excited for it all right now.
I mean, I need to see them. I need to see them first and foremost. I need to see how they handle those situations. I'm going into this thing with zero expectation. And the idea behind that is I want to see one of these guys pop. I want to see one of these guys surprise and really show out and show that they actually belong at this level before I put that burden on them in the first place. And like, now maybe that's the wrong way to go about it. Maybe those guys should have the burden of expectations on them immediately and then can meet those expectations. But maybe it's KJ Simpson, maybe it's TJ Bamba, who's another guy who they're very excited about. They have Aaron Nkrumah, who's a good 3-and-D wing who they're looking forward to. Who I'm certainly definitely looking forward to seeing. So there are some names. There's some names for people to watch. And over the course of these 4 or 5 summer league games, there's going to be some names that stand out. My hope is that Denver gets a guy in this that they feel really comfortable with, can play immediately. But I need to have some assurances that David Adelman's actually going to go that direction.
On the other side, we'll see if we can warm up Ryan Blackburn's icy cold heart about this Denver Nuggets team. And we got some more great stuff to get into here at Locked On Nuggets. Support for today's episode comes from Indeed sponsored jobs. When workplace chaos hits and you need the right hire, Indeed sponsored jobs helps connect employers with candidates who match specific needs like skills, certifications, and locations. So less time gets spent searching and more time gets spent finding the right fit. Now, people are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Now, as you know, we're talking about the Denver Nuggets and building a rotation that could win another championship. What does Jokic, Murray, and Aaron Gordon need in order to flourish? Do they need another rim runner? Is that Brazil? Do they need another wing that can do all the things and score and play defense on the outside? Is that going to be Hopkins? Just like building a team, building a business, it's really important. You got to have somebody who knows their role and is able to help everything else run as smooth as possible. So make sure when you take the time to hire and recruit, you find the right person for the job. That way it can help you be the very best version of self that you can. So spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. Well, you need the right person to cut through the chaos. This is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs. We'll be back for the second segment here at Locked On Nuggets. And we are back here for the second segment of Locked On Nuggets. Shout out to y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining us each and every day. Y'all, today's episode is also brought to you by Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at https:/odoo.com/locked-on. Yo, so we're over here talking about the Denver Nuggets getting ready to go in the Summer League, and Ryan Blackburn is like, well, I need to see somebody pop and be positive.
How about them just be on the roster?
Peyton Watson is not that good.
Is this a crazy idea?
The roster's not set. Jokic is going to leave. He's going to leave next summer.
Hey,
Jamal
man.
Murray might not be good enough.
How about Alpha Diallo? Let's go get a EuroLeague defender. Let's go see if we can add somebody who is actually capable of playing some defense, and that would be nice. Now, to be fair, he was, and here's me being Eeyore again. He's guarding like Marcus Howard and Facu Campazzo, so like there's a little bit of a difference here than guarding AJ DeBonsta and LeBron James and guys like that. But who knows? It would be nice, and I think Nuggets fans. And I said this earlier today or yesterday actually. I think Nuggets fans just want to see any positive news. Like, just give them anything, and literally anything, and that could be signing rookies. That it literally is exactly what is necessary here, because they're in a holding pattern, and they've been caught in this holding pattern because of the situation that they're in with Peyton Watson and trying to squeeze the ever-loving crap out of his contract.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. Look, somebody appreciates my theater skills doing Othello and all that for all those years. Much ado about nothing. I did, shout out to gifted and talented classes. We would do Shakespeare and all kind of guitar and all that stuff and live performances back in the day. And Ryan doesn't appreciate those skills.
It's not like I never took theater ever.
You did? What was your favorite play?
I was King
Macbeth?
Arthur in King Arthur, and I was Robin Hood in Robin Hood.
Mm-hmm. Well, what happened to that positivity? And now all Ryan does, you're like the Nightmare Before Christmas. You steal the presents under kids' trees.
I was also the butler in Annie, if that tells you anything.
Ryan, can you give us a line from your past, please?
Oh my dude, this was like 7th or 8th grade. I can't. I literally cannot remember anything,
brother.
From any of those things. But I could, I shoot this arrow through your heart, Maid Marian, or something like that.
Y'all, this is why y'all have to subscribe to this channel. Number one, because where else are you going to get great basketball insight? You're going to get great content. You're going to get great, fun, loving people, but you're going to get people reenacting lines they were committed to in middle school in the middle of the summer. You're not going to find this anywhere at any point in time except here. And Ryan, just to add on to what you're saying, tomorrow creeps in this petty phase from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lightened fools the way of dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. The struts and frets, his hour upon the stage.
This
and
dude
is
is
heard
reading
no
off
more.
of a line.
It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Wow,
yes.
Look at that. Locked on host. They said that we are not multi-talented. Shout out to you all. Shout out to the chat. Locked on lesbians. Yes.
that is not what I read first.
All is not bleak. All is not doom. Hope will arise. Ryan Blackburn on Poet Friday. Can you give us some good, hopeful words for what you are excited for and looking forward to with this team?
Out, damn spots. Oh man, that's good. No, okay. So you want hopeful words? Here's what I'll say. The Clippers have been going through this absolute atrocity in terms of the aspiration case. And yes, Shams and the Clippers and the Raptors have put out some positivity and some things that have said, yes, this is going to get done. We're thinking about this getting done. This will be something that happens. I think that the Watson's camp and Clutch and everybody there, I think, is trying to wait out that process to regain some leverage. The Nuggets are using the leverage that they have at their disposal right now, and that's why this process is taking so long. They do not want to give up Peyton Watson. They understand how valuable he is. They understand what he means to both the present and the future of this group. They're not just going to give him up for nothing. Now, if they do end up trading him for something that is less than desirable to the Clippers, then that's when you can start having some questions. But until that happens, I'm going to continue operating under the premise that Peyton Watson is a Nugget, that Peyton Watson is going to be with the Denver Nuggets and somebody who can give them a little bit more of an upward mobility in terms of what they're asking for, what they're hoping for. I do think that other moves are coming and people have to prepare themselves for that, like in order to make room for Peyton Watson's extension, or new contract, I guess. But I do think that Denver at this point understands that. And as long as Nuggets fans understand that and go into the season or go into the rest of this offseason with that belief, they'll be okay. Like it's going to be fine. They're still going to have a great starting lineup, and they're still going to have, they're going to try to get more depth out of this. And once those roster spots start filling up, it's going to feel a lot better. They just haven't filled up yet because the Nuggets are in stasis.
What's so interesting about this is, I will say, if the Nuggets either way, this Calvin Booth was correct about this. 22 he cooked. Bruce Brown, KCP, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson. Brother, he's hit on all 4 of those decisions.
Yeah, those were great.
And they cost him, they won him a championship. And then they also built out their shooting guard of the future in Christian Brown, who they paid. And then this Peyton Watson thing, he was a pure swing. They've gotten, based on an average 30th overall pick, they've gotten like 1,200% value out of Peyton Watson so far. And they're about to get more because either he turns into a legitimate player in their rotation, and I think he's going to be their 4th cog going forward. But even if they trade him, based on what wings, 23-year-old wings with this kind of upside that teams are betting on, there's a lot of equity they can get in a trade for Peyton Watson back into Denver. Now, I hope he stays and remains. But either way, I think this still works out in the long run for Denver.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I think that they probably will. And it's going to, like, you're not just going to let him go for nothing. I think that's the biggest fear that Nuggets fans have, is that they're just going to let Peyton Watson go for nothing. That's not going to happen, at least from my understanding. So that's a really valuable factor there. They're not going to let this get to a situation where he has to take the qualifying offer. He doesn't want to take the qualifying offer. He wants to have locked in cash as quickly as he can too. And so there's a lot of factors that are drawing them towards doing a deal, but Denver's doing the right thing and trying to get themselves as much financial flexibility as they can. And so, because like I've talked about this before, for every dollar that Peyton Watson signs for, it's going to be like $8 in luxury tax. So like if he signs a $20 million contract, you're increasing that luxury tax by $160 million or somewhere in that general range. So that's the factor here that they have to understand, that they have to figure out. And so that's why they are trying to reduce it. That's why they're taking their time with it.
On the other side, we're going to finish this conversation about Summer League. I have a couple more questions for Ryan Blackburn pertaining to his Peyton Watson sweepstakes. What is Ryan looking for? What would he like to see happen in this process? Because I think Ryan, in his big, wonderful brain, there's a lot of stuff he can tap into and get in there. It's not just great hair under the hat, y'all. We'll talk about all that more here at Locked On Nuggets. Pitchoon.
Big, wonderful brain.
We really
big head. I'll say that.
Matt's the only adult that exists between us, apparently. Matt would not be letting this go on. I can tell you that much. You guys are doing too much. We here to talk business. Talk about the Locked On Nuggets and what the Nuggets need to do. Ryan, tell me, brother, because we were talking in the chat a little bit. What do you think?
No, here's what happened. Right. You and Matt were talking in the chat a little bit, and then I pipe in every 35th text message. And then it starts another chain of 35 text messages because, my gosh, you guys just go. You fly.
Yeah, it's our job. We got to ideate between each other. So for you, what do you think is a fair, because the Nuggets reportedly, which I believe, by the way, they're asking for a Walker Kessler type return for Peyton Watson, which is 2 first and then 2, which unprotected, by the way, for them, but then 2 swaps as well. What do you think, based on the league, maybe not personal feelings per se, what do you think based on the league a fair ask would be for Peyton Watson at the stage in his career?
Yeah, it's not that. Like, that's too high. I think what Walker Kessler got in terms of the stability that he brings, we actually talked about this on game night, I believe, unless that was the Locked On Nuggets that night. I can't remember. But it was effectively like 2 firsts and 2 swaps that Walker Kessler got. I think that Peyton Watson is worth probably closer to 1 first and 1 swap, but it could be 2 firsts and 1 swap. It could be 2 firsts by itself, somewhere in that general range. I think that they're not going to get all of what they're seeking out. One of the reasons why the Lakers paid that premium was to ensure that Utah was not going to match. And so then they were able to sign Walker Kessler to a more effective and efficient deal than like trying to max that thing out with a trade kicker and a player option and a $35 million per year salary and things like that. They kept it a little bit more equitable for all sides. And so that's one of the reasons why they paid that much. I don't think the Nuggets would be super interested in that, but they do think that I think they want something back from that. The question is whether they want a player back from that as well. And I'm not sure if I have a good answer for that because Like, it would be nice to get somebody, if you're trading him to the Clippers, for example. Like, you can't get Benedict Mathurin in a double sign and trade because that hard caps you at the first apron. They're not even close to that. That is way too far away. If it was somebody who's already on a contract, like Derek Jones Jr., they would have to work really hard and trade Cam Johnson for basically nothing in order to make that work, just to stay under the second apron. Chris Dunn, he makes half the salary that Derek Jones Jr. does, so they would have to work a little bit less hard. They might be able to make it work, but it would be very difficult. They'd have to get somebody to take on Zeke Nnaji. Something that we talked about, actually, if there was an equitable deal, I think a first-round pick, a swap, and then 2 second-round picks for Peyton Watson, and those 2 second-round picks get rerouted to take on Zeke Nnaji's contract for another team. Like, I think that if you're Denver, you feel pretty good about something like that because you get a first-round pick and a swap, and you get off of Zeke Nnaji's deal at the same time. That actually gets you some real flexibility there, and you could sign somebody else that you like. Maybe you could even sign Benedict Mathurin with that. That would be my pitch to Benedict Mathurin. Come be the sixth man for Denver for a year.
Yeah, what would be that trade again to get Benny?
It would be, hey, you're not getting Benedict Mathurin. He has to be renounced as a restricted free agent. But it would be Peyton Watson to the Clippers for a first-round pick, a swap, and 2 second-round picks that then get rerouted along with Zeke Nnaji to a third team.
Yeah.
Somebody like the Charlotte Hornets or Memphis Grizzlies.
So you're saying they'd be under the first apron and luxury tax after that point?
Not under the luxury tax, but they would be, I think, under the first. No, they're not even under the first apron at that point. But what it means is that they could actually sign somebody else in free agency with the mini MLE, the luxury tax taxpayer MLE, and so they could get somebody else that's actually of value on the free agency market. Although there's not that many other guys left.
Do you think Benny would take that deal?
I think for 1 year he would consider it because Denver would be able to give him the role that he's looking for. And then you could justify that if you're him, basically saying, yes, we'll give you this. And then, like, we're not expecting to have you back after that year, but this is just a 1 year commitment so that you make sure that you are not getting screwed over by the Clippers who are trying to play you out of your position and like play Peyton Watson over you.
What is by the way, I really like Benedict Mathurin. What do you this situation with him is perplexing because he's a super talented guard. He's a wing, like he's a full-fledged wing. But if you kind of look at his season, you know, he didn't shoot well from 3 at all. Like, you know, that's definitely something he's continuing to work on. But they were a plus 3.1 with him on the floor. He had a plus 2.4 swing last year. You know, if you look at his, like, you know, numbers on the season, you know, he's not like a high level shooter yet, but he's big. He's 6'5", 210 pounds. He's only 24 years old.
That's good.
He averaged 17 points a game, 5 rebounds and 2 assists last year. I mean, Benny to me is like, I know, like, you know, I definitely understand he's growing, and Destin's right. Like, his b-ball IQ isn't great because he had the worst 1 minute in the NBA Finals I've ever seen. But even with that, it's like 24. Like,
yeah, Matt thinks he's better than P-Watt.
He's more polished in like offensively than P-Watt, but I think P-Watt's ceiling is higher, and I think
I agree with you. Like the versatility and like how you think P-Watt fits into a framework for a championship team and like with the defensive ability that he has, I think makes some sense. But if you're talking about Mathurin for just a 1 year rental for Denver and then play him a whole heck of a lot, try to win a title, and if it doesn't work, who cares? Like, you got a guy in Benedict Mathurin and you got a first round pick out of it. Like, that would be pretty good. But let's say you can't get him. Like, you probably have to settle for somebody else who is not that good in this case. I'd have to check and even see who the remaining free agents are on the open market at this point to see if anybody's actually worth it. Jonathan Kuminga, Matisse Thybulle.
How would you feel about if they went the Hawks way? And, you know, and they went the Hawks and they did. Could they do a sign and trade for Jonathan Kuminga, or would that be they would have to go Zachary Richardson?
Nah, because that one would be a double sign and trade, and then they have to be under the first apron for that.
Right. So that'd be Zachary Richardson and like.
Yeah, with Richardson under contract, they would be able to do it, but they would have to get under the second apron for that. And because he makes so much money, Ricochet makes like $13 million. It's not an easy fit, unfortunately. So I think like that one would be really tough unless you had something else lined up. And maybe there's a Cam Johnson or Christian Brown deal that you're doing with that. But the problem with that is that you're losing 2 starters and you're really only getting like a bench player back in that case. And that doesn't really help you as a team. Like it doesn't make you a better basketball team.
Well, the money would open up drastically, obviously, if they got off like CB, for instance, right?
Yeah.
But then the other side of this is, they're not getting a replicable player for either of those spots. Because if you're losing Peyton and you're losing CB, then you're losing 2 players that are guaranteed in the rotation. And where Zach Ricochet is right now in his career, I mean, he's not getting minutes for the Hawks at all.
I think Zachary Ricochet would be a really good fit in Denver, actually, like just as a 20 to 25 minute per game bench wing. However, that role isn't open, and like Denver doesn't necessarily need that. They would rather have somebody who's a little bit more polished in all likelihood, and they don't necessarily need the defender. But like I'd be very happy to try to like have Zachary Ricochet as a second contract guy for Denver. But $13 million is $13 million. That's what a former number 1 overall pick gets paid in the 4th year.
Yeah,
third year.
You didn't like that. They couldn't. When we proposed in the chat and a trade centered around Nikhil, you don't think that'd be possible for Denver? You think he's too good?
I mean, I think that's such a valuable contract for them that like, I mean, Denver should move heaven and earth to try to do that if they could. Like if there was a possibility to set up, even if you don't get any draft capital back, like it's just a Peyton Watson for Nickeil Alexander-Walker sign and trade. First and foremost, Nickeil won Most Improved Player of the Year. Like that would be a very surprising thing for me for the Hawks to basically say, no, we would not want, like, we prefer Peyton Watson on this larger contract than you. But who knows? Maybe they see a ceiling with Nickeil and they would rather.
Well, Watson has he's going to be. I think he's going to be better than Nickeil. Nickeil like definitely popped, but I think Watson has that like, this is also obviously dangerous in the league, and the Clippers are doing this too. He got that what if, he has that like the Peter Griffin, but what if there's a boat in the box type thing, And I think Watson.
Matt would say he could be anything. He could even be Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Right. Do you? Yeah, we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. Cause I wonder if you're kind of on my side. Denver, if they do keep him, I do think they do need to continue to develop him as an on-ball player, even if he's not great at it right now. Are you kind of that mindset too?
I am, but like. I am also of the mind that like they are holding too tightly onto the 2 timelines. Like they are trying too hard to pay the previous championship core.
So you're saying
while also paying the next contingent too.
So that's Murray, Gordon, Jokic.
Yeah, Murray, Gordon, Jokic, and Cam Johnson in this case, although they probably have to move Cam. And so maybe that frees it up a little bit. But then they're also paying Christian Brown and Peyton Watson in that case, and it hurts your bench. It just hurts your ability to have the depth that is celebrated around the league, and that we're all complaining during the regular season and even during the playoffs. So like, oh man, they had Ayo Dosunmu come off the bench and kill us. Like that's the problem that you run into if you have so much money that is tied into your starting unit and you don't have the ability to add bench guys. Like that's the only way. If you're like, you gotta trade your starters in that case. It's not just a financial thing. It is just a talent like collection thing where you have so much talent concentrated into your top 5 or top 6 that 7 through 15 at that point is just comparatively so much worse than the rest of the league. So I think that that's the direction that they need to go personally. And like, I think the rest of the NBA reflects that. Although we did just see a team in the New York Knicks win a championship while they had a very heavily paid starting 5. So it's possible, but you just need to know that it's very difficult to sustain that.
Sure. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Nuggets. We'll be back tonight. Matt Moore, I believe, will be here with you with the solo reaction to the Nuggets Summer League game. And you already know Swipa, I will be doing episodes as well after the game. And Ryan, maybe. Are you going to work today? We'll find out. Also got Locked On NBA tonight as well, so you can make sure you tap in. Ryan, myself, and Matt will give y'all content that you're looking for. Talk about your Denver Nuggets. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe on the YouTube side. Make sure you give us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes and Spotify. Continue to tap in on the great content being made here at Locked On Nuggets, and we will see you on the other side.
To be or not to be.